Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide. I'm happy you've tuned in tonight. This is where we dispel that media myth that all Latinos are a bunch of left-wing nutcases. No. I am a liberty-loving Latino. I actually love my country. Lots to get into. We're going to continue the gun debate because that seems to be consuming the entire country in the wake of what happened in Las Vegas here a couple of weeks ago. But I figured we start off with something a little different tonight. First off, let me tell you how you can get in touch with the show. ChrisSalcedo.com. That's ChrisSalcedo.com. You can find our Facebook link there. You can also find Twitter at Chris Salcedo TX, at ChrisSalcedo as in Texas, the freest state in the union, where I am broadcasting to you from tonight. Okay. Before I get into any of the gun talk, I wanted to talk about this, what's happening over my right shoulder. That there is Vice President Pence, standing there with the second lady, and they're standing at attention. They have their hands over their hearts, and they're standing for the national anthem. This was over the weekend at the Colts 49ers game. This is something we couldn't get into yesterday. Anyway, so you see the vice president standing there, and he's doing what good Americans do, standing at attention for the anthem, respecting the flag, respecting the country. Well, apparently the vice president had noticed that there were some others that were not respecting the country. They were not respecting the flag. They were not respecting the anthem. They were some NFL players on the sidelines. So you know what the vice president did? Vice president left. He said, well, I'm not going to, well, you know what? Let me just get the vice president in his own words. I left today's Colts game because at POTUS and I are not going to dignify that disrespect of our soldiers, our flag, or our national anthem. That was RVP. I think that is something we can all be proud of. The vice president of the United States actually putting his money where his mouth is, because I don't think he got his money back for being in those seats. So the president of the United States a couple of weeks back said that the best thing that you could do if you're sitting at a National Football League game and you see them disrespecting the flag, the anthem, and the country, get up and leave. And that's what the vice president did. Hat tip from the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide to the Vice President of the United States for doing something like this. It's a proud moment for me, your liberty-loving Latino here, because I have, this is the second weekend in a row, I've not watched one NFL game. Just one, not even turning it on. And my rule was if I turn it on and I see a reprobate player kneeling for the national anthem, then I turn it off. But I've just not made it a priority. The National Football League, and I think many of you may be in this same boat. National Football League is just not a priority. Not going to make it a priority. If I happen to be watching a game at the beginning, then maybe I'll keep it on. But it's what this guy did. That there's Colin Kaepernick. He's the guy that started it all. That's what do they call that? Patient zero, reprobate zero. Right there. Reprobate zero right there. Now, Colin Kaepernick did something interesting over the weekend. He let folks know that he would stand for the national anthem if somebody would just give him a job. I have said from the very beginning that Colin Kaepernick was doing this kind of thing because he only had 1 year left on his contract. He wanted the San Francisco 49ers to be put into a bad spot, so he started throwing this hissy fit on the sidelines. Plus, he had a girlfriend. Colin Kaepernick got a girlfriend, some Black Lives Matter idiot. And he wanted to use this as leverage into getting the 49ers to get him a big contract, to re-sign him. But he wasn't playing so well on the field, and one thing led to another. He ended up getting thrown out into free agency, and no team, oddly enough, no team wanted to take a risk for him. And not that I can blame them. A, he wasn't good at his job, and B, he was disrespecting the flag, the country, and the national anthem. So is it a surprise to anybody that when the money starts to dry up, and don't forget how Reprobate Zero spent his summer, last summer. He went, or the NFL offseason, I should say. He went abroad to trash America abroad. That was what Colin Kaepernick did. So, again, no sympathy. I understand when the money starts drying up and the prestige starts drying up and nobody really cares who you are or what you're doing, why you want to get back in the limelight. Oh, stand for the national anthem now. Apparently the country wasn't full of American-hating reprobates like Mr. Kaepernick here and others in the National Football League think it is. So I don't know that that's going to change anything. He's still not a good football player. I'm not sure it's going to change how the fans feel. I'm starting to get into high school football. I'm starting to get into college football. I may never go back to the National Football League for their lack of standards. I looked at the National Football League when they said, oh, no, you Dallas Cowboys, you can't wear a 5 decal on your helmets to honor the 5 slain police officers at the hands of a Black Lives Matter thug. But we're going to allow our players to kneel on the sideline and disrespect the anthem, the flag, and the country? Sorry. So sorry. So I may be done with the NFL permanently. Let's get into the gun discussion, shall we? This has been the topic that's on the tip of almost everybody's tongue in the country, whether you're lawmakers or whether you're just average Joes talking about what's going on in our nation. Over the weekend, this is CBS Face the Nation, and they're having a conversation with one of the biggest gun grabbers in our culture. Her name is Senator Dianne Feinstein from California. And she had a very, well, she wants to get rid of bump stocks. And for those of you who were with us yesterday, you understood what bump stocks are and what they do. I don't want you guys to fall for this and being told that bump stocks turn a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. It's not the way it works. It's not automatic weapons fire, and don't let anybody tell you differently. By the way, you'll lose your accuracy. Anyway, Dianne Feinstein here wants to, or DIFI as she's called, she wants to ban bump stocks. And she has authored a bill to do that, but she was asked a very interesting question. And I think this is the central question that we should be asking ourselves before we start making policy decision of any kind when you're reacting to a disaster or a high-profile incident. And listen to what the CBS moderator actually asked Dianne Feinstein about the efficacy of these laws.
Could there have been any law passed that would have stopped him?
No, he passed background checks registering for handguns. And
wait a minute. The answer was no. There is no law that could be passed that would have stopped the Las Vegas shooter. So why are we talking about passing laws? Why is it, and we did touch base on this yesterday, why is it that every single time there is a shooting or a mass shooting that we must debate laws, new regulations that won't stop mass shootings? Why is that? Chris Cox spoke from the National Rifle Association, spoke with Chris Wallace over the weekend. We'll probably get to that in tomorrow's show. But what you guys have to know and understand about this whole debate is that this is the sum total of what Democrats bring to the table. X happens, and you start debating about why. X happens, and instead of trying to solve X, trying to stop X, because we're assuming that X is a bad thing, if X is a bad thing, you want to solve X, correct? No, don't talk to the Democrats, because what they want to do, they want to solve Y. Because in essence, what I'm saying here, folks, is that the Democrats are wanting to debate laws and impose new laws that would not have prevented the mass shootings, any of these mass shootings. And that shows you what their real agenda is.
Other weapons on multiple occasions.
And one of the things that's been a part of this debate is some people right after this massacre called for more gun regulation, said something must be done, blamed the NRA. And what gun rights advocates heard is they heard that call for something to be done. And what they heard in that is people essentially saying, we want to ban semi-automatic weapons.
Well,
before she answers, no, what we heard is the gun grabbers want our guns. Not just semi-automatic weapons. They want all guns held by law-abiding citizens, while the elites will be able to hold on to their weapons, either they or their paid security. That includes the Hollywood elites. That includes leftists like Dianne Feinstein. Like I said yesterday, that when we start talking about these laws and Democrats start imposing these laws, everything is to advance a left-wing agenda. And the left-wing agenda has always been to disarm the law-abiding so the law-abiding people can't resist government, can't resist what Democrats will want to do to you. Let's let Di-Fi finish her answer.
that's just plain wrong. This is written in clean English. You can take a look at it. I'll send a copy of it. It's a 2-page bill. I'll send a copy of it to anyone who calls our office, and you can look at it yourself. It does not take anyone's gun.
Yeah, this one doesn't. This removal of bump stocks is, well, I guess we can remember what this lady said. That's Nancy Pelosi. She's a leftist. She's a anti-constitutional leftist. And here's what she said about banning bump stocks.
They're going to say if you give them bump stock, it's going to be the slippery slope. I certainly hope so.
She hopes so. She hopes that, and that, folks, what you have to understand is when the left wing does something like this, that it's always to advance a left-wing liberal agenda. And if you were to ask these Democrats what they really want, what they really, really want in their heart of hearts, it's to make sure you can't defend yourself from them. And there's out of the proverbial horse's mouth right there. Nancy Pelosi is hoping this is a slippery slope. She's hoping if the Republicans, the National Rifle Association, give in on bump stocks, that will open up the floodgates. And you'll soon not have the right to defend yourself. If that is the case, then my next guest, you might want to get to know what he's all about. Cody Wilson is his name. He's called the Ghost Gunner. And I'll explain what that means along with Cody. Coming up next, the Chris Salcedo Show here on the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide. And welcome back, everybody. It's Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide here on the Vida Television Network. Over my right shoulder, that guy is Cody Wilson. He is the author of Come and Take It, the Gun Printer's Guide to Free Thinking, otherwise known as the Ghost Gunner. And we're going to explain, for all of you novices out there who don't know what 3D printing, Second Amendment issues, guns are all about, he's going to be the guy to explain it. Cody, welcome back to the Chris Salcedo Show.
Man, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, the pleasure's all mine. Look, we have to weigh in on current events. You've got, and we talked a little bit about this in the first segment. What you have is Dianne Feinstein coming out over the weekend and basically admitting to CBS News that nothing that they are proposing, that the liberals, the Democrats, the gun grabbers, nothing they're proposing would have stopped these mass shootings, but they're going to propose them anyway because they're basically revealing they have a different agenda. What's your take on all this?
run that by me real quick?
Yeah, I mean, basically progressive politics is about being judged on intent, and it's okay to be completely dislocated from factual reality and policy reality. If I want that reality should be different, or if I want an ideal future to achieve itself, then it's okay, even if that can't be connected to a specific policy. We can do anything, we can do something, we can do nothing, but as long as we want it to be fixed, then we have the moral high ground. And so, fine, Feinstein doesn't even have to admit that any of these policies would have been connected with a different outcome.
Yeah, it's very true. By the way, speaking of clueless leftists who are trying to hide their agendas behind these tragedies, and their real agenda by the left wing and by Democrats is to take guns out of law-abiding gun owners' hands. There is a guy that is over your right shoulder, a cardboard cutout. Who is that? Explain to the folks at home who that is.
That's Kevin DeLeon. He's the president of the California Democrats, and I guess he's the mascot of my company. He's made us many millions of dollars, and I guess he's been the icon of the ghost gun movement, if you will.
Now, and the reason, and you got to tell the folks the story behind this guy. I know the story because you've been on the radio program several times. But explain to the folks that liberal's idea of gun control and why he became the unofficial mascot of your company.
I would say official mascot, but no.
Okay.
Basically, Mr. DeLeon tried to kind of popularize the term ghost gun in California. He wanted to scare basically the legislative apparatus into a system where it's not okay, it's not right, it's not natural that people be able to make their own guns. It's somehow an unusual situation, a terroristic scenario, where if the government doesn't understand that you're making your own gun, that's a huge problem, and it needs to know. When you've made your own gun and not told the government, it's a phantom, it's a ghost, it haunts the system. And so we took Mr. DeLeon's words, ghost gun, and we sold our machine with his words.
Nice. And you know what? Isn't this the same individual who doesn't know the difference between a clip or a magazine?
Yeah, that's right. Classic video moment on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just classic moment. He said 30 magazine clip, 60 calibers a second, all kinds of things where he was just grasping at straws. Really beautiful moment, man. I highly recommend anyone check it out on YouTube. Many versions of the video.
Yeah, if you guys want to see somebody that's totally clueless, who has no idea about what they're talking about, but still wants to legislate away your rights, Mr. De Leon there is the poster child. Check it out on YouTube. Cody Wilson is my guest right now. Come and take it. The name of the book, The Gun Printer's Guide to Free Thinking. Let's talk about what you guys do as a solution. You know that the conversation now, even among Republicans, is to eliminate bump stocks, and the National Rifle Association is saying that we ought to look at that. And of course, Nancy Pelosi's out there saying, well, she hopes this is a slippery slope for taking more guns out of more people's hands. You guys, the technology you have put out there, I think many can regard a solution to overreaching government. Explain what it is you guys do.
Yeah, if not a solution, then very surely a safety valve. The entire scenario legislatively is premised on the idea that there will always be completely regulated channels for how you will get access to a firearm. You will buy it from a registered dealer, or you will buy it from a registered manufacturer. We will always be able to trace. We will always be able to know where a gun came from, its provenance. The law doesn't contemplate the scenario of mass manufacture on an individual basis because that simply wasn't the norm 20, 30 years ago when a lot of these laws really kind of solidified, or even 40 and 50 years ago when the Gun Control Act was implemented. Now, because of the digital revolution, it's never been easier to make your own guns, which has always been a legal thing. And therefore, it's never been easier to sidestep. I don't want to go to Cabela's. I don't want to go to Walmart. I don't want to go, buy from the FFL. I can simply make the thing myself, and it's just as good. And now no one has to know about it.
Now you're holding up something, and you're holding up something in your hand. To explain to folks what exactly that is and how it was made.
So this is a M1911 single stack 45 frame. This is the 1911 frame. It's classic, Colt 45 configuration. When you finish this from 80% and assemble the pieces yourself, there's no numbers on it. There's no serialization. You did it under your own power, and so you're not required or regulated to tell anybody about it. It's a private gun, or as Kevin DeLeon would say, it's a ghost gun. But in fact, it's identical to what you would buy. It's just that it's not registered in the tables of power. It's gun privacy.
Yeah, and you can buy the basic framework for what they call the lowers, correct? For any gun that's 80% manufactured, completely legal, and then folks can use your machine to actually finish it out to spec, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's the primary hardware project we have right now is a machine that allows you to mill ARs, AR-15, AR-308, 1911s, Glocks, standard guns that you're already used to in your real life, but to mill them to military spec under your own power, in your own home, in your own kitchen, and then sidestep the requirement of registering that gun or of serializing that gun.
Now, before I let the folks see the piece of machinery that's responsible for doing all of this, you brought this up about the law, about being able to mill your own weapons, to manufacture your own ammunition. This is not prohibited. This is 100% legal in the United States, though there are Democrats and liberal extremists and, dare I say, ill-informed members of the media who would like you to think it's completely illegal. Explain that first.
Yeah, they don't come out and tell you that it's illegal because it's not, but they come out with inventive terms like ghost gun, right? And they use the kind of security.
Oh, wait, assault weapon. They make up terms.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So they're very good at like shaping language to cast otherwise free activity into suspicion, and to basically, bring it into the security language that we've come to get used to since 9/11. Like, oh no, what if no one knows I've made a gun? Well, that's not a problem. You live in a free country, but they want to baptize it in that security language so that you're unsure if you should do it, and you're unsure if you shouldn't let the government into it. And this is a way of providing an entree in their minds to eventually containing this type of activity and eventually regulating it. So for now, they want to use scary language because they can't use scary laws and scary enforcement.
And again, folks, we have to stress manufacturing your own ammunition for your own use, manufacturing weapons for your own use is 100% legal. Cody Wilson is our guest right now. He is the author of Come and Take It, The Printer's Guide to Free Thinking. Their company has been labeled the Ghost Gunner because they are trying to enable common everyday Americans to make their own weapons for self-defense. Show us the machine, if you will, Cody, how big this thing is, or actually, if you want to think about it, how small it is.
Sure. No, I've got one with me right here. I don't know. You can see the limits of this machine in the frame here, right?
Yeah.
I've got it in my hands. These are not huge hands. This is about a 12 foot. This is about a 12 foot by 12 foot box. Okay, it fits on your desk. This is the milling unit inside. This is the work table. I've got a 1911 handgun frame here. It fits inside. I bolt it in. I do my milling work with my tooling. I do a tool change. I do it again. Same thing with AR frames. Same thing with anything that'll fit inside here. It can do the milling in a very accurate 3-axis CNC scenario that is just as good as what you might find in a much more expensive machine shop.
And you can interface that machine with your computer. Tell the machine, this is what we're milling today. And we got to stress this. So long as you're manufacturing guns for your own use, it is 100% within the law.
Yeah, that's right. Never not been that way. It's just that there's never been tools like this in such tidy packages that connect to your computer and behave just like any other accessory that you might ordinarily buy, like a consumer device. Yeah, you tell the machine, okay, today we're doing AR-15. Let's do a couple of AR-15s. And it'll do that for you in a couple hours. You're mostly standing there watching it. Same thing with 1911s and handguns that we've just released this month. Look, you put it in, you change the part, you change the tool, it does the rest, and you just kind of watch it go. There's people that find this very entertaining to just watch a machine take care of their milling work.
Sure. Well, and the question that's probably popping into a lot of the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide audience right now is how much does this run me now, and how, in your estimation, you've probably done the research on this, Cody, is when does it make sense to spend money to buy a unit like this? And how many guns would you have to produce to manufacture to make it, cost effective to where you wouldn't have to go out and buy it, let's say from, like you mentioned, Cabela's or some other gun store?
Yeah, well, look, if you're in the market for one gun, I don't think it makes absolute sense for you to buy this machine. This is a $1,600 machine. Okay, not expensive, but certainly not cheap by any standard. But if you're looking to, dabble in CNC, you want to teach yourself CNC related to guns, or you want to become a gunsmith, or do some engraving, do some skeletonizing, do some things outside the box. This is a great way to get started. Very, very low capital investment. So we've seen a lot of our customers become actual federal firearms licensed dealers and manufacturers because they had this as an easy stepping stone, kind of something they could do on the side until they decided to get serious about the work or add more customers. So I think it's a great entry-level CNC. It's also a great entryway to becoming a gunsmith or to doing just kind of tinkering around with your own private projects. If you
Yeah,
wanna do more
we've got to
than 3 or 4
define for the folks CNC.
CNC, like what you're seeing here is a moving gantry. There's actually 3 different axes of movement.
Or what does it stand for? What does CNC stand for?
It means computer numeric control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's basically a mill, but it's controlled by a computer. So the pieces of software that we give you, they direct a tool, and that tool is directed very, very accurately over the metal that you put in the machine. So the computer takes care of the accuracy in the milling. You mostly set up the arrangements and execute the program.
All right, let's talk up. You could probably move the unit off to the side there so we can see a little bit more of you.
Fine, man.
Let's talk about the philosophy behind this. And I, being a conservative, a lot of folks watching this program being conservative and recognizing how important the right of self-defense is. Where does the Ghost Gunner machine and where does your company fit in with that inherent right that many of we conservatives believe is a right that is gifted to us by God and preserved by the Constitution of the United States?
I think where we fit into this equation, and granted, we're represented by the Second Amendment Foundation. We have a big federal lawsuit. I mean, we're actually trying to actively represent this as a literal part of your Second Amendment before the federal courts right now. Mm-hmm. But in a much more material way, in a literal way, you don't have rights that you can't exercise. If you can't exercise them easily, you begin to lose them. And so one real material connection to your Second Amendment with a device like this is if you have the right to keep and bear arms, you have the right to make them. But that's an abstract thing. If I can actually teach you and give you a device and get you into the practice and the habit and even the culture of making your own firearms, that's a self-sure way of maintaining the right to keep and bear arms. You keep that, the DNA of the firearm itself, in your family, in your culture, and in a kind of practice that you wouldn't have ordinarily had. You would have been a passive consumer of your right more than an active participant in it, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And you know what? It bears pointing out that the history will show that when this country wasn't when we had one political party not actively working to disarm law-abiding citizens, when we had individuals who were creating their own ammunition and making their own weapons, we didn't have mass shootings. We didn't have this kind of violence that we're seeing. Even though gun violence by and large around the country is down, mass shootings are up. And when people were brought up to respect and manufacture and understand the power of these weapons, we had a better understanding, and the society as a whole had a better understanding of what it means to defend your family and your interests with a firearm.
I think that's well said. And there's a lot of slippery tactics right now with our political enemies about defining what is gun violence, what is a mass shooting. There's always bad faith in developing these numbers. So even if you can show me that, like, okay, now mass shootings as a tactic are up, there's still outlier events. They're not the bombing terrorisms of the 1960s and 70s, and they're at the end of the day a rhetorical distraction from the fact that the right to keep and bear arms is as American as apple pie. Developing and maintaining your own military-grade rifles is considered to be a fundamental, perhaps the second most important part of a civic life in this republic. And we won't be distracted by naysayers or our critics. We're going to give you the capacity to do that.
Name of the book, Come and Take It, The Gun Printer's Guide to Free Thinking. The author, Cody Wilson. Ghost Gunner Machine, folks. Check it out online. Cody, thank you very much for being here on the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide.
Pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, kids, that's going to do it for tonight's program. Make sure you keep in touch with us on social media, chrissalcedo.com, or on Twitter at ChrisSalcedoTX. See you back here tomorrow night for the Chris Salcedo Show Worldwide on the Vida Television Network.